Good morning. Today we're going to be talking about solving parallel lines. I will continue with the angle relationships that we looked at in the last video, and we will apply what we know about those relationships to solve for missing variables and missing angles. So let's get started. Here in this first one, we have a set of parallel lines cut by a transversal, and we're given one angle. And then I ask you to find the other angles. And in the reasons column, we're going to give a reason that we know that angle based on the other angles that we've already found. So if that's a little bit confusing, let's just get started, look at it, and maybe it'll make more sense. So we're given angle 60, an angle of 60 degrees. And if we look at angle 1 is adjacent and supplementary to the 60-degree angle because they make a linear pair. So when they make a linear pair, we know they're supplementary. We know that if we added those together, they would have to equal 180. And so we can find the 60-degree angle simply by the other angle by subtracting the 60-degree angle from 180 so that we know that angle 1 is 120 degrees. Now, if we look at angle 2 forms a linear pair with angle 1. If you look at it kind of sideways, if it helps, tilt your head. And so if angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary, then that means that angle 2 is also 60 degrees. The other reason could be that angle 2 is a vertical angle with the 60-degree angle. Either one of those reasons would work, and we only need to list one. So they're vertical angles, so angle 2 is their congruent is also 60 degrees. And then angle 3 makes a linear pair with angle 2 and the 60-degree angle. So it's a linear pair, it's supplementary to 60, and so angle 3 is 120 degrees. Now, moving down to the bottom parallel line, where angles 4, 5, 6, and 7 are, if we look at angle 4, we can see that angle 4 is an alternate interior angle to angle 3. And we know that alternate interior angles are congruent. So angle 4 is 120 degrees, just like angle 3. Now, moving on to angle 5, we can look, it makes a linear pair, so it is supplementary to angle 4. Therefore, angle 5 would be 60 degrees because 120 plus 60 would be 180. And then angle 6 is vertical to angle 4, or you can look at it as supplementary to angle 5. Here I filled in vertical and congruent to angle 4. You could have put supplementary to angle 5 and make us a linear pair, would have been acceptable. So angle 6 is 120 degrees. And then angle 7 is makes a linear pair with angle 6. It also makes a linear pair with angle 4. It's also vertical to angle 5. But anyway, any of those reasons would work. And as you can see with parallel lines, you get many different reasons to fill in an angle measure. Either way, angle 7 is 60 degrees. So given one angle for a parallel lines cut by a transversal, you can find the other 7 angles, and one is all you really need to know. And if you're doing this with algebra statements, like what we're going to do in the next section, things that involve an X or a question mark, or what we're going to do later as we go through here, you'll see that you have to know these relationships, and you may choose one, the person working beside you may choose a different relationship. Either way is fine. So let's continue on looking at some of these. Here, we're just trying to find the missing angle, and we want to find the angle where the question mark is. So if I look at, in example number 1, if I look at the question mark and 75 degrees, I should recognize that those are corresponding angles. And I know corresponding angles are congruent. Therefore, the angle where the question mark is would be 75 degrees. Now, in example 2, I see that angle, the angle where the question mark is and the 109-degree angle, they are same side interior. And I know that same side interior angles are supplementary. I have to use that fact to know that if I add those two angles together, they would equal 180. So 109 plus the question mark angle would equal 180. And if I solve that by subtracting 109 from both sides, I realize that the question mark is equal to 71 degrees. All right? That's one type of problem we can do. Another type has x's involved. I know that makes you excited. So here we have an angle that is x plus 133, and we have a 130-degree angle. If I look at those two angles, I should realize that they are corresponding angles, and corresponding angles are congruent. Therefore, if angles are congruent, I can set them equal to each other. So I have x plus 133 equals 130. And when I set them equal to each other, in order to solve this equation, I have to subtract 133 from both sides. And when I do that, I get x equals -3. And it's okay for x to be -3 as long as you don't end up with a negative degree angle. We don't have negative degree angles in what we're doing this year. So if x equals -3, I've satisfied the conditions of solving for x. If you want to check yourself, you can do -3 plus 133 gives you 130. So indeed, those two angles are congruent. On the second example, I have that those two angles are same side interior. And I know that same side interior angles are supplementary. So when I add those two together, I should equal 180. So I write my equation, which gets kind of long. I have 15x plus 11 plus 10x minus 6 equals 180. That represents adding both of those angles together and setting them equal to 180. Now, on the left-hand side of that equation, I have some like terms to combine. So I'm going to have 15x plus 10x is 25x, and 11 plus my -6 there is a +5 equals 180. Now I'm going to solve this equation. I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. And when I do that, I get 25x equals 175. And then when I divide by 25 on both sides, I simply get x equals 7. And again, I could substitute that 7 in there, find those angle measures, but here it just simply asks us to solve for x. Now let's look at another example. Here we're going to find the angles. So in example number 1, those two angles are inside the parallel line on the same side of the transversal. So they are same side interior angles, and I know that they are supplementary. Knowing that they're supplementary means that I have to add them together and set them equal to 180. So x plus 121 plus x plus 81 equals 180. I'm going to combine my like terms. So I have 2x plus 202 equals 180. I'm going to subtract 202 from both sides, and I get 2x equals -22. And when I divide by 2, I get x equals -11. And then I'm going to substitute that -11 into x plus 121 and solve so that I get 110 for that angle. And when I substitute it into the bottom one, I get 70. And if I look at the next example, I see that those two angles are alternate exterior angles and they are congruent. I'm going to set them equal to each other. And then I'm going to subtract my 10x from both sides so that I have 2x minus 11 equals 11. I'm going to add 11 to both sides. So I have 2x equals 22. I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides to get x equals 11. And then I'm going to substitute that in. 12 times 11 minus 11 equals 121. And 10 times 11 plus 11 equals 121. You're going to have some examples to work with these and get lots of practice. Good luck.